We are live.
Hi everyone!
Hello, welcome to the podcast. I'm John.
And I'm Hayley.
And this is the Speed Mooting Partners in Crime podcast.
Episode 70.
70. So let's jump in and let's name our episode.
Let's go, John.
We normally name them after Formula 1 drivers. As I've mentioned for many episodes. We are in a bit of a drought now when it comes to Formula 1 driver numbers. I think 77 is our next one. So we're into WWE. We're looking for wrestlers born in the that year. Had a quick look, 1970, wrestler born that year, Chris Jericho.
Why does that name ring a bell? What's his move, or what did he say about him?
He does the Walls of Jericho.
Yeah.
Basically a Boston Crab, but he calls it the Walls of Jericho.
I don't know what a Boston Crab is.
Yeah. People of an older generation will know, because apparently back in the 70s and the 80s when it used to come on daytime TV, they all did the Boston Crab.
There we go.
There we are. My nan used to talk about the Boston Crab. And yeah. So Chris Jericho, but of course, this week we had the sad news of the passing of Hulk Hogan.
Oh, it was sad, that, wasn't it?
Very sad.
Right after Ozzy as well, it was double whammy.
Double whammy. Two larger-than-life characters, aren't they?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so...
Love them or hate them, everyone knows them.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Hulk Hogan, big... Well, probably the biggest name of all, you know what I mean? He set the scene for all the big people that followed after him, so...
I knew who he was, even before I knew you, John, which, is big.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the stupid wrestling knowledge I have now has came because of you. But no, Hulk Hogan, you can't take credit for that one. I knew who he was.
Yeah. So very sad. Probably on most people's Mount Rushmore, isn't he, of wrestlers? Mount Rushmore is when people go, who's your Mount Rushmore of? So it's your four...
Okay.
It's not a wrestling analogy, it's an analogy for anything. You could say, who's your Mount Rushmore of barristers?
Is Mount Rushmore the best mountain of all time or something?
No, but it's a mountain in America, and it's got the American founding fathers on there, hasn't it?
Oh, has it?
So I don't even know which presidents are on there. Comment below if you know which presidents are there. I've got a feeling George Washington's on there, but I could be wrong. But yeah, it's
we definitely probably should know this.
Probably should know. I'm gonna Google it as we talk.
Okay.
Today I actually said I'm gonna keep my introduction short because I listened to a previous introduction of mine and I thought, you ramble on, John. I talk some absolute nonsense in these introductions, and today my plan was to keep it nice and brief and short.
Well, we're only 3 minutes in, so...
Oh, we're only 3...
Let's go. Let's go.
Up. We've got time to Google Mount Rushmore.
I'm going to guess. Did you say Benjamin Franklin?
No, I'm
going to say Benjamin Franklin.
You reckon Ben Franklin's on there? So I'm going to say George Washington. I'm going to go... Right, I'm going to take a guess. I'm going to say Washington, Lincoln, Hamilton, Jackson, I don't know. So it's Theodore Roosevelt, Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington.
Ooh.
If you knew that,
well done you.
Well done to you. But yeah, no, so it's just an analogy. So you can talk about anything, normally it's in a sporting context, who's your Mount Rushmore of whatever. So the point being, most people will put Hulk Hogan on their Mount Rushmore of wrestling.
Ooh.
But anyway, it's not a wrestling podcast. Let's move on. And I think we've done well to keep our intro to less than 4 minutes.
Yep.
So let's start talking some law. So welcome to episode 70, the Chris Jericho and Hulk Hogan special.
Welcome,
brother.
So funny.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, let's go.
So this week we had the witness handling session at the Legal Advocacy Club.
We did.
So this is part of our 3-part series this summer where our members are conducting a full criminal trial.
Yeah.
So the first month they did opening speeches, this month they did witness handling, and next month they will be doing the closing speech.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry though if you missed one or both of the other sessions. They do act as standalone sessions, so if you want to come along and try a closing speech, you don't need to have been to the other sessions. So not to worry, if you're dying to join Advocacy Club, there's place for you, so you can join us. speedmooting.com is the place to go.
It certainly is.
Now, do you want to tell people a little bit more about that meeting, John? What happened? And then we'll dive into what's going to take up the whole of this segment, I think.
Yeah, I certainly do. So as you've mentioned, Hayley, this is part of our criminal trial session. So we're doing a criminal trial. It's based on a Section 39 assault by beating. So in this particular scenario, we've got our complainant who has been punched to the face, or allegedly punched to the face. It happens outside the pub. He has his friend who's an eyewitness there who sees the sort of aftermath of this, or part of the incident and a bit of the aftermath. And our defendants, so 2 prosecution witnesses, 1 defence witness. So as you said, session 1 we had the prosecution opening speech. This session the members were conducting the witness handling. So members were split into groups of 3, and each member had the chance to play a witness. Each member had the chance to examine a witness in chief. Each member had the chance to cross-examine, and of course each played a different part, but at least they got to have a go of each of the different parts anyway. And all of those skills, examination in chief and cross-examination, they're vital for a trial lawyer. And that's why we're allowing our members to practice that skill and develop that skill.
Mm-hmm.
So they spent an hour in a breakout room, conducting the advocacy and sharing low-pressure peer-to-peer feedback. And then at the end of the session, we brought everyone back into the main room, and I delivered a talk all about how to conduct evidence in chief and how to cross-examine, or shared some tips anyway. And as I was talking away, we received lots and lots and lots of questions for the members, from the members, I should say. And I answered as many as I could, but unfortunately, the Advocacy Club is only so long, and we can't keep going on past midnight. So we answered as many as we could, and so we thought, well, let's answer the balance of those questions today.
Yep.
So, should we jump in and let's answer some questions, Hayley?
Let's jump in with an Ask Speed Squad special.
Let's do it.
So before we jump into these specific questions, just for anyone who's listening, if you don't know, Ask Speed Squad is our segment where we answer all of our listeners' questions.
Yeah.
So as of today, we've got loads of questions in relation to witness handling, so it's going to be a niche session today, but it doesn't have to be. We can answer questions on absolutely anything. So you can email us about our life in practice. I'm a commercial solicitor. John's a criminal barrister. If you don't know, you can ask us anything about that. We are also getting married to each other in October.
Yeah.
You can ask us anything about that.
Yeah.
Or you can ask us about our work we do here at Speed Mooting. Nothing is off limits.
Oh, ask away.
And the best way to ask questions is to email us, info@speedmooting.com, or you can message us. We are on every social media channel that exists.
Yeah.
Or wherever you are listening to this podcast, you can comment on it, and we will answer your question on the next episode.
Sounds good.
Ready to go, John?
Let's go.
So this isn't a question to start with, but I just really liked, someone put this in the chat box and I said it was a really cool comment, so I said I was going to share it.
Oh, go on.
It was interesting to see how powerful the closed questions can be. As someone explained, I won't name them because it was obviously someone in the club and they may want to remain anonymous, the narrative created by the questioner is just as important as the answers.
Yeah.
And that's something you've said before, isn't it, John? Sometimes it almost doesn't matter what the answer is, as long as you've posed the question in the right way. It gets the judge thinking, or it gets the jury thinking anyway, so you've kind of still achieved your aim.
Yeah, so you're just letting the questions hang. So, think about it. Let's say you got, a case where somebody's gone somewhere they shouldn't, and you say, well, what were you doing there on that? And they'll give an answer. But just the fact of you asking that question makes the jury think, hang on, what was that person? It doesn't matter what their answer, what were they doing there on that day? That sort of thing. So it's more about asking the question, letting the question hang, so your jury or your bench of magistrates think, yeah, because, the witness is always going to give some sort of answer, some cock and bull story. And so, it's more about letting it hang and putting it out there, making that suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Question for you now. In reality, do you get a chance to read the witness statements of other witnesses before you start? So can you use information from other witnesses to challenge your current witness? Two separate questions there, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose so. So The answer is yes. If you're an advocate, yeah, you'll see all the evidence in the case. You couldn't run the trial without seeing all of the evidence. The caveat to that being, we include what's called a proof of evidence in the bundle. So a proof of evidence is almost like the defendant's witness. Well, it is basically the defendant's witness statement, but that's a confidential document between them and their lawyers. So it's generally put together by their solicitors. Solicitor asks the client questions, puts together this document that's signed by the client. And that is never served on the prosecution. So the prosecution won't see the defendant's proof of evidence beforehand. So that's the only caveat. All the other statements in the case will generally be seen by the lawyer. So to answer the question, well, can you use information that's in one statement against another witness? 100%.
Yeah.
But you just got to think about how you do it. So you wouldn't necessarily say, well, such and such says this, so what do you say about that? That's not really the way you go about the questioning. But say there's inconsistencies, you might put that, so you might ask them questions. So say, for argument's sake, in this example, let's say, I'm trying to think of a really simple example. So we're talking about two people in the pub. So let's say person A is there. He says, I had 2 pints during my time in the pub. Person B says, oh yeah, I was with person A and I saw person A have 7 pints. Okay. And you'd say, how long were you, you might question person A, how long were you in the pub? I was in for this amount of time. How many drinks did you have? 2. So would it be wrong to suggest that you had any more drinks than that? Oh yeah, categorically no, I never had any whatsoever. And then when you quizzing person B, get them to confirm what's been said there, and you can see how that feeds into your closing speech, the inconsistencies there. So you wouldn't be, you wouldn't necessarily use one against the other. Good example of how I've done this in the past. So I had a particular trial many years ago now, and similar example. It got me thinking about it, and there was a person, she was trying to basically say that she was, because alcohol featured in this case, she was trying to say that she was not drunk at all, pretty sober, and said, oh, I had 1 drink towards the end of the evening, but when we were in the pub doing pre-drinks, it was like I was doing a fitness challenge or something, and therefore I wasn't drinking at all. I was on lemonade or water or whatever. I can't remember what it was. It was years ago this now, but for whatever reason, she was saying I was doing this fitness challenge and I didn't drink at all. And when I cross-examined another person asking about this same situation where you got all these people in the pub together, so what we all doing there? Oh, we all went out for a drink. Everyone having alcohol? Yeah. Was there anyone, for example, doing like a fitness challenge and they weren't drinking for that reason? Oh, no, there was no one in our group doing that. So you can see how, I'm not putting it as this person says this.
Yeah.
I asked the question very generally.
Yeah.
And you can see how that person is directly, without me even having to say, well, this person says this. I just asked a very general question, and straight away that witness has contradicted what the other has said. Now, in this particular example, so obviously we've got a case here. So in this fictional scenario for the Advocacy Club, it's an individual that says he's been punched. The defendant says categorically, I never punched this person whatsoever. He provides a photograph of a bruise to the eye, but says that he took the photograph several days later. Now, in his friend's witness, the complainant's friend gives a statement as well, and within this mentions, oh, me and the complainant have started going to boxing classes. I didn't go this week, but the complainant did, and I met up with him the following morning, and I saw he had a bruise there. Now, the boxing is not mentioned whatsoever in his statements, but of course that's a piece of information you can use against him. It's perfectly open to you to, if you were cross-examining on behalf of the defendant, to ask him about the boxing class and principally, did you get the bruise in the boxing class, as opposed to, so you can see how, you can certainly use information from one statement in another, but be clever about it.
Ooh. Can the defence counsel ask questions to their client in chief relating to information they've heard from evidence by a prosecution witness?
Well, yes is the simple answer, because of course your client has to answer the case. They've got to give evidence on this, and if allegations have been made against them, about what's happened on the night, then of course you would ask questions in that regard. Principally, the classic example here, or the main example, is the complainant is saying that he was punched by the defendant. So obviously, when you're examining, let's say you're the defense barrister, you're examining the defendant in chief, you're asking open questions for him to talk about what happened on that night, talk about the interaction, any interaction he had with the defendant. But ultimately, you'll put the question fairly and squarely.
Yeah.
Did you at any point punch the complainant? And of course, if there are other allegations that have been made, so let's say, I don't know, the complainant also says that he was pushed at some point. You say, well, there's been a suggestion today that you've pushed Mr. whatever his name is. Did you do that? So yeah, so it's fair enough to ask questions in that regard of the defendant. There's no problem with that whatsoever. And quite frankly, you need to, because because those questions are coming in cross-examination anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
This video is brought to you by Speed Mooting. We are an organisation that help aspiring and junior lawyers. We run online and in-person advocacy and mooting competitions. We do online advocacy and public speaking training, and we run lots of other events to assist people on their legal journey. To learn more, visit our website, speedmooting.com.
So we did answer this question in the Advocacy Club session, but I think it's a really good one for our listeners who weren't there, so I'll ask you to answer it again for us, John.
Okay.
When you create your questions with the intent of getting a specific answer, what tips do you have for when the answer comes and it's not what you expected and it completely causes an issue or an error in your case?
Yeah. Well, it's like when we talk about judicial intervention, prepare in advance and then hopefully you'll know where things are going to go. And as we were talking about earlier on, for the most part, your answers are not massively concerning. It's mainly about putting the suggestions to a particular witness. Now, it will happen occasionally where you'll get an answer and you're stumped. So the general rule for cross-examination is you shouldn't really ask questions you don't know the answer to. Okay, because for this very reason, A, you might be stumped by an answer, and B, you might get an answer that's not particularly helpful to your case. So as a general rule, you shouldn't really be poking in the dark. Only ask questions where you know the answers to the question. But occasionally there's going to be times when you don't know the answer to a question. Okay, and it's a bit of a judgment call, and the more experienced you become, the more of a feel you get for when you're going to ask questions where you don't know the answer, because you get a feel of where cross-examination is going and what you want from the witness. But occasionally you'll get something and it absolutely stumps you and isn't helpful to your case, and you need to think carefully about, well, where do I go next with this? Now, there's nothing wrong with taking a few seconds to have a pause, looking down at your notes, maybe, jot something down on a piece of paper to, pretend you're writing something just to buy yourself a few extra seconds. But, it's like with judicial intervention. Don't feel the need to rush in. Take some time to have a little think about it before putting the next question if, it's something that changes the course of where you're going with your cross-examination. But hopefully it should be the exception if you've planned well for cross-examination.
Would you say with cross-examination, you should always be able to move on to your next question, regardless of what the witness says? I suppose they mean if you have a plan, do you just carry on through your plan, or do you ever stop and change up your order or change up your questions based on what they say?
Yeah, I mean, I think different people have different approaches on this. So I was talking about this on the night, and some people have a sort of flowchart approach where they'll ask a question. If the answer is yes, go down here. If the answer is no, go here. I don't really like that answer for that approach for the previous reason, because sometimes you don't know what answer they'll give, and because it's clear if you've got a flowchart, you're asking a number of questions you don't know the answers to. And secondly, witnesses can go all over the place, so you really need to keep control of the witness. Now, I tend to do a series of questions. So I do write out my questions with the way I go about mine. Some people just literally do themes for cross-examination. So in a case like this, it might be I want to ask about previous conviction, alcohol, aggression, whatever, they just do themes like that. So I tend to do questions, but what will happen is even though I've got a list of questions, I kind of break it down even more. Once you get into a bit of a flow, you get bounce with it. So bounce is question, answer, question, answer, question, answer. And you get into a bit of a flow like that. So I tend to go a little bit off piece and ask more questions than what's on the sheet of paper anyway, because I'm breaking them down into micro questions, if I put it that way. So you should, in theory, be able to follow it through the way that you've done. So I think if you can't, something's gone fundamentally wrong. Something's gone wrong. And it might be, sometimes it could be as simple as you get an answer that's very helpful. You're going to ask a series of questions because you're hoping to get to sort of one that will lead to a specific answer. You might get the answer you want 5 questions earlier. In which case, right, fine, ditch that. We'll move on to the next topic, the next subject of cross-examination. But yeah, for the most part, you should find that you shouldn't need to abandon something because something's gone wrong in cross-examination. Hopefully that doesn't happen.
Yeah. During examination in chief, how do you identify a redundant, useless question from a good one? I suppose you wouldn't, if you thought they were redundant and useless, they wouldn't be on your list of questions.
Yeah, so with evidence in chief, I don't tend to write out questions. So what I tend to do is I have the witness statement in front of me, and I basically just move through the witness statement and try and get the witness to give all of the information. Now, talking about redundant and useless, occasionally there's information in a statement that is useless that you just don't need. It might be, I'm taking an extreme example here, but let's say in this case the complainant says, I had bright green trainers on that day. Doesn't help anyone. That's probably not the sort of information we're talking about, but I just thought, I'd use an extreme example. So if I saw that in there, I wouldn't really ask about that unless it was relevant for some sort of reason. So as you're going through, you'll see information that you think, do you know what, I don't need to ask about that. But basically what I do is I go through the statement and just work my way through it and try and get the witness to say what is in the statement.
Yeah.
And I should reiterate for those who are listening who might not know this, when a witness is in the witness box, they won't have their statement in front of them. So as the advocate, you've got the statement there, and your job is to ask very open questions for the witness to basically say what's in the statement.
Yes.
So in terms of a redundant question, I don't think there's a redundant question. It's just, is there redundant information in the statement that you don't want to bring out? If in doubt, bring it out, but rhyme that. But yeah, for the most part, you're just working your way through and really think about, the WH questions: who, what, where, when, why, how.
Yes.
And try and avoid, if you can, what happened next. Think of something a little bit more clever. So you might, we talked about the piggybacking method. So let's say, I ask you, Hayley, right? So what garment are you wearing there? And you would answer to say,
hoodie,
quarter zip, hoodie, whatever. Okay, and where did you purchase the hoodie?
No idea. We'll say Asda.
Say Asda, yeah, okay. Right, so now you've got that, so I can use that, I can frame the question. And so when you went to Asda, was it busy that day?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can see how I'm using the last piece of information to frame the next one.
Yeah.
So let's say you're going to go to, I need to move on to the next thing. Something happened in Asda. Instead of saying what happened next, so when you were at Asda, what was the last thing you remember? Something like that. Rather than what happened next.
Yeah. No, that's closely related to the next question actually, because the question actually is, how do you ask better open-ended questions? For example, if you ask them and they're too open-ended, and the witness statement just goes on stating their whole entire case or tons of stuff that's not relevant. So it's hard to control them if you ask a question that's too open, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. So really try and rein it in and try and focus on a specific piece of information with the question. And if you find that the client is the witness is talking too much and they're jumping ahead, missing things, go, all right, we're just gonna pause there. So taking that example, let's say you've talked about Asda and then you're talking about your trip to McDonald's afterwards. Right, pause there. I've just got a few more questions about Asda. Tell me about. So you can just say as the witness is talking, pause there. I want to ask you more about this, and then continue.
Yeah. Okay. So we talked earlier about how witnesses won't have their statements in front of them.
Yeah.
But there is an exception to that, isn't there, if they can't remember clearly what they've said in the statements? Do you want to talk us through that, John?
Yeah. So as we've mentioned, the witness shouldn't have the statement in front of them. But there is an exception to this, and it comes from section 139 of the Criminal Justice Act. So it's typically the prosecution that would tend to make an application, because it's generally prosecution witnesses that have statements. And it would be if, let's say a witness can't remember something, the prosecution will make an application to the judge for the witness to have sight of their statement again. And the conditions that need to be satisfied are that the witness's memory would have been better at the time that, when they made their initial statement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, invariably, the defence will object to this.
That's the question we had here.
Right. Okay. So invariably, that the prosecution, the defence rather, would generally object to that.
Yeah.
Because, well, let's say if the prosecution are asking questions and they're trying to get a piece of information out and it's just not coming out, they might be able to put the statements in front of the witness in that circumstance because they've just not remembered a key piece of information. When it comes to, let's say it's timing, and let's say a witness says this incident occurred at 6 o'clock in the evening, and in their statement they said it occurred at midday, the prosecution would then say, well, can the witness have the chance to refresh their memory? What the defence would say is, well, the prosecution is basically cross-examining its own witness now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it's given the witness has given evidence in court that's materially different to what they've said at the time. So it's not necessarily refreshing the memory, it's cross-examining, or that's the argument that the defence would make anyway. So in the majority of situations, it will be a contested application for the witness to refresh their memory from an earlier statement.
Does that happen often in your experience, or?
Not really, because generally speaking, when it's crucial information, witnesses tend to remember.
Mm-hmm.
It's happened occasionally. And normally it might be when there's just a crucial piece of evidence.
Just one tiny bit, but they can't get there.
Yeah, I just can't get the witness to say so. And it's not coaching the witness or anything like that. It's just because maybe the pressure of being in court, that just their mind goes blank. They forget something crucial. But yeah, it happens occasionally, but not as often as you would think. But normally, if it's a case of the witness, saying they don't remember something, you might get it in. But if they've given one piece of information that is massively different to what's in the statement, and then the prosecution lawyer wants, or it could be a defence.
Yeah, but most often
counsel if there is a statement from somebody, but more often than not, it's the prosecution. What you'll say is the defence is, well, look, they're trying to cross-examine now, and it's that's not what this is all about.
Ooh. You're off the hook, John. That is the end of our questions.
Interesting.
So thank you again to all of our Advocacy Club members who asked those questions. And if you have any more, do send them in to us.
Yeah, keep sending them in. I enjoy it. It's like being cross-examined myself.
Yeah, you did very well. Are we going to keep this a short one today? I think we are.
I think so, yeah. We're both massively busy, aren't we? We've got a lot going on.
We have. It's Thursday again as we're recording this, and you're back in court tomorrow. I've got a million other things to get done.
Yeah.
So we're going to have this as a Witness Handling Ask Speed Squad special.
Yeah.
I will just mention one thing, because just ahead of this podcast, I was having a little look on my LinkedIn. And this is really interesting. So we've talked before, and we might turn this into a larger segment next week, about the billable hours model and the NQ pay wars. I suppose they're not really pay wars, but it's the competition, isn't it, of the London NQs that's going up and up and up and having an effect on the regions as well. So I've just seen today that Shoesmiths have just made an announcement. Their NQ salary in London has gone up to 105,000.
Okay.
But it's tied to a bonus structure that has, I think it's something like 1,300 hours, a yearly billable target.
Right.
Which is quite average, quite flexible. Not a bad target, I don't think. But they've also said they've got an upper limit on billable hours.
Oh, that's
so something like if it's going over 1,900 hours, I don't know if it takes away from their bonus structure or something, but it's discouraging overworking just as much as underworking, which I think is an industry first. I've never seen that before.
No, I've never seen that before.
Which is, is really interesting because it's one of the things that have been talked about. The billable model and the targets tied to billable hours encourages overworking and leads to burnout. So let's see what happens. Let's watch that space and see if anyone follows suit.
Then. So let's say for argument's sake.
I'm sure 1,300 hours is
No. Probably is. Sounds about right.
Is a good manageable target.
So say what you reckon is about 46 weeks a year you'd work.
I want to say that's like 6.5 hours a day, maybe.
Yes, 28 hours a week divided by 5. About 5.5 hours a day.
Yeah, it's probably works out about 6. Maybe it is 5.5 charges.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, we're rough and ready figures here.
Yeah.
And then what was the top end? 1,900.
Mm-hmm.
So once again, I'd say it's 46 weeks taking into account your holidays, all the rest of it. Okay, so it's 41 hours a week. 8 hours a day.
So yeah, let's watch this space. Say I've just seen a post about it on LinkedIn a couple of hours ago, so I haven't looked into it properly, but I think that's an industry first. Certainly from one of the larger commercial firms. I haven't seen that before.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'd love to know your comments and your thoughts on this. Fingers crossed it's a step in the right direction to protect people from overworking and burnout, which is a big problem with the billable hours model. So
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Let's hope it's a step in the right direction.
Yep.
Brilliant. Well, I've enjoyed recording it. Have you enjoyed recording this one, Hayley?
I've enjoyed recording it, John.
So given that this is a sort of witness handling type special, and obviously you've got the Tom Cruise, was it Jack Nicholson as well movie where he goes, you can't handle the truth?
Yes.
If you're still listening at this point, drop us a comment down below. You can't handle the truth.
Have to put some B-roll in now, won't I?
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Yeah, definitely. It's better than the WWE B-roll we've been
That's usually in there.
Speaking of which, we've been watching that show, haven't we? The behind the scenes program.
Yes, it's really good. Would recommend it. Even if you're not a massive WWE fan, which I'm not, it's really interesting anyway.
Yeah. And Happy Gilmore 2 as well came out this week.
That was great.
Brilliant film.
I've seen Nick's reviews of it, but we really enjoyed it.
I think people are just miserable, aren't they?
I think it was a really good, callback to the original.
Yeah.
And there were so many cameos in it.
And that's what people are moaning about. Oh, it's so similar to the original. Well, yeah, of course, because the Happy Gilmore film, what do you expect?
That's what we wanted.
I think the problem is, though, like, as a general rule, if critics don't like a movie, it's probably a good movie.
Really?
Oh, God, yeah. Some of the rubbish that critics like, and then...
To be fair, yeah, that one you watched, that car one the other week, didn't that have like 5 stars or something?
Yeah, that's probably Amazon itself that's rated that one. I think
John watched, we won't name it because we're not mean like that, but it was a ridiculously stupid car film when they were doing like the scenes where, I don't know, they were drifting around a corner or something, like the CGI was so bad you could see that it was like illustrated and not really happening.
It's hard to explain, but it literally went from like, it's a live action film but turned into a cartoon, didn't it? And then it go back to it's
Anyway, let's wrap up.
We're off on a tangent again now. I'm making up for the lack of nonsense at the start of the podcast. But anyway, that brings us to the end. Sorry that it's slightly shorter than normal. Still getting on for 40 minutes anyway, so it's not too bad.
Not too bad.
Yeah, hopefully we've filled your commute. And we will be back with more content, same time, next week. See you there. Cheerio.
Bye-bye.
Enjoying our videos? Then we'd be super grateful if you could take a moment and subscribe to our channel.